Kelcy Warren, the Texan pipeline magnate whose rise from small-town roots to the boardrooms of one of America's biggest midstream energy companies, reads like a modern-day industrial epic. This is the story of a man who turned pipes into power, controversy into headlines, and private passions into public projects, and in the process built an empire that reshaped American energy infrastructure. Born in East Texas in 1955, Kelcy Lee Warren grew up around the oil fields. His early life had the kind of rough-and-ready, hands-on training that would later shape both his worldview and his work ethic. A childhood steeped in the practicalities of the oil patch and the small-town grit of White Oak, Texas. He went on to study civil engineering at the University of Texas at Arlington, a formal education that would later underpin a career of large-scale infrastructure thinking. Warren's first jobs were classic blue-collar to white-collar ascents, working in the fields, learning the day-to-day of energy production, then moving into technical and managerial roles. Those years in the trenches taught him an essential lesson that would become a through line of his career. Infrastructure, the pipes, terminals, and storage that move energy from wellhead to market, is where persistent value lives. Building and owning that plumbing, he believed, was less risky and ultimately more lucrative than speculative upstream plays. In 1996, Warren co-founded Energy Transfer as a modest intrastate natural gas pipeline operator, roughly 200 miles of pipe and a handful of employees. From that unassuming start, he began an aggressive, acquisitive growth strategy that focused on buying, connecting, and optimizing midstream assets. Over the next 2 decades, through deals, reorganizations, and creative capital structures, Energy Transfer grew into a national powerhouse with pipelines, terminals, and processing complexes stretching across the United States. The company's expansion reflected a simple playbook: take stranded supply, create a route to market, and monetize both volume and spread. What made Warren's strategy distinctive was its blend of operational focus and strategic opportunism. Rather than trying to control upstream production, Energy Transfer concentrated on the moving parts that make energy tradable. Pipelines that reduce transportation costs, terminals that open export markets, and processing that turns raw streams into saleable commodities. The firm made money 2 ways: reliable fees for transporting volume and arbitrage on price spreads created by connecting regions. That approach was particularly well suited to the shale revolution. As new basins like the Permian, Eagle Ford, and Bakken erupted with supply, pipelines became the critical connectors between pockets of production and coastal export hubs. One of the defining and most controversial chapters of Warren's career was Energy Transfer's role in constructing the Dakota Access Pipeline, DAP. The project aimed to transport crude oil from the Bakken fields of North Dakota to markets farther south and was pitched as an infrastructure necessity by its backers. But the route cut near Indigenous lands and water sources, sparking months of intense protests at Standing Rock in 2016. The conflict transformed the pipeline into a national symbol of the tensions between energy development, environmental protection, and tribal sovereignty, and Warren, as the visible leader of the company behind the project, found himself at the center of a ferocious public debate. That controversy hardened into prolonged legal and reputational battles. Energy Transfer and associated parties have engaged in litigation and public relations campaigns in the aftermath, while activists and tribes continued to challenge the pipeline's social and environmental footprint. The episode crystallized a paradox at the heart of Warren's public image, lauded by some as a decisive builder of essential infrastructure, and by others as a lightning rod for fights over community rights and environmental cost. Warren's business style is often described with a Texan bluntness: decisive, bold, and sometimes aggressive. That temperament carried over into corporate moves, large acquisitions, ambitious expansions, and an appetite for regulatory and legal fights when projects ran into resistance. But it was also paired with an unmistakable entrepreneurial streak. When markets shifted, when natural gas prices fell or the balance of streams changed, Warren steered his company to diversify into liquids, refined products, and export infrastructure, reshaping Energy Transfer into a multi-stream midstream titan. The financial fruits of that strategy are plain. Energy Transfer's network of pipelines, terminals, and storage assets today comprise one of the largest midstream footprints in the U.S., handling an outsized share of domestic hydrocarbon movements. Over the years, Warren's stake in that business and his other investments propelled him onto the lists of America's wealthiest people, with net worth that has moved into the billions and placed him repeatedly among the country's richest. But business success brought scrutiny. Warren and Energy Transfer have faced criticism for environmental impacts, for political influence, and for the company's methods in handling protests and opposition. In turn, Warren adopted an increasingly litigious stance towards some environmental groups, resulting in high-profile lawsuits that underscore how energy conflicts have migrated from the field to the courtroom. Those legal moves have won him allies in some quarters and fierce condemnation in others, and they illustrate how corporate defense of assets can quickly become a broader cultural flashpoint. Alongside the combative headlines, Kelcy Warren has cultivated a second, very public persona, that of a philanthropist and patron of culture and community projects. One of his most visible gifts was the founding donation to what became Klyde Warren Park in downtown Dallas, a deck park that literally bridges downtown and uptown over a freeway. Warren's contribution of roughly $10 million helped catalyze the broader funding and gave him naming rights. In later years, he and his wife committed additional support to the park's expansion. For many Dallas residents, the park is the clearest physical reminder of Warren's local legacy. Philanthropy from Warren has extended to higher education as well. He made a notable, record-setting gift to his alma mater, the University of Texas at Arlington, including a $12 million donation to support resource and energy engineering programs, a symbolic return to the institution that shaped his early technical training. His foundation also supports conservation causes tied to Caddo Lake and regionally focused civic projects. Those gifts portray a pattern. While his business moves are national and industrial, his philanthropic focus often lands close to home, supporting institutions that anchor Dallas and Northeast Texas. Warren's personal tastes are a surprising footnote for a man best known for pipelines. He's a well-known fan of folk and Americana music, hosts an annual music festival at his ranch, and even launched a record label, pursuits that paint him as a collector of experiences as much as assets. The mix of blue-collar roots, engineering education, business ruthlessness, and cultural patronage is a large part of what makes his biography narratively rich. On the political front, Warren's donations and influence are notable. Over multiple election cycles, he and his company have been major donors to conservative candidates and super PACs, including sizable contributions linked to Republican campaigns and committees. Those contributions, combined with his company's political footprint, underscore how energy leaders often act as political actors, shaping policy debates directly through campaign finance and indirectly through public advocacy. Critics argue such influence skews policymaking toward corporate priorities. Supporters counter that energy companies are defending jobs and national energy security. Corporate governance at Energy Transfer reflects Warren's long-term control. While he began stepping back from day-to-day management in late 2020, handing co-CEO responsibilities to others, he remained executive chairman and the largest shareholder, keeping strategic influence over the company's trajectory. That governance model allowed him to shift his role without ceding operational control entirely, preserving both legacy and sway. Warren's approach to risk has often been characterized by an ability to see long-term payoff where others saw short-term noise. Buying assets when the market was dislocated, financing complex deals that others shied away from, and converting facilities, for example, repurposing terminals as export gateways, showcased a playbook keyed to patient, infrastructure-first thinking. That strategy worked especially well during and after the shale boom, when American production surged and needed new outlets and logistics. Yet the flip side of long strategic bets is headline risk. DAPL is the most obvious example, but Energy Transfer's rise frequently intersected with public concerns about pollution, community impacts, and indigenous rights. For public audiences, the question became, can a company build the infrastructure a modern economy demands while honoring social consent and environmental limits? Warren's record suggests a partial answer. Yes on the infrastructure and economic side, contested on the social and environmental. The debate around him is really a wider debate about how societies balance development and stewardship. Looking at Warren's leadership style and personal brand, some themes stand out. First, tactical patience. Pipelines are a long-term business, and Warren has shown a mindset geared to decades rather than quarters. Second, willingness to fight. Whether in negotiation, litigation, or politics, he's proven prepared to defend projects aggressively. Third, civic theater. Large gifts and public-facing cultural investments make his local footprint as visible as his corporate footprint. These traits combine into a leader who is as comfortable in a boardroom as he is hosting a backyard folk festival. TexasBusiness.org. What about legacy? For proponents, Kelcy Warren is the builder who solved logistical puzzles, unlocked export markets, and helped make America a major energy exporter. For critics, he embodies the excesses of an extractive economy that sometimes sidelines community and environmental voices. Legacy for Warren will likely be judged on both counts: the tangible pipeline network and exports he enabled, and how the controversies around projects like Dakota Access are remembered. History will measure whether his model of infrastructure-first development can align with evolving expectations for environmental accountability and social license. In recent years, his personal wealth, a direct function of Energy Transfer's scale and market performance, has placed him on multiple rich lists and in the national conversation about the country's billionaires. Forbes, Bloomberg, and other outlets track his net worth, which has fluctuated with markets, but consistently marked him as one of the wealthiest figures tied to the U.S. energy sector. Those rankings are snapshots of capital value. They don't capture the operational complexity or the controversies that undergird that value. No biography of a modern CEO is complete without a look at temperament. Warren's public comments over the years, sometimes blunt, sometimes affectionate about his homeland, reflect a man who sees clarity in directness. He has been criticized for inflammatory rhetoric at times and praised for uncommon openness at others. His combination of engineering literalness and competitive toughness explains both his success and the battles he's found himself in. As energy markets shift, with debates about decarbonization, electrification, and a changing regulatory environment, Warren and Energy Transfer face a strategic crossroads common to legacy midstream firms. Can pipeline companies adapt their asset base to a lower carbon era while maintaining profitability? Can they secure the social license to operate in communities increasingly wary of fossil fuel expansion? The answers will shape not only Warren's continuing legacy, but the broader blueprint for midstream businesses in the 21st century. Finally, Kelcy Warren's life is a study in contrasts. An engineer who runs a media-facing corporate empire, a builder who courts controversy, a donor who shapes urban parks and university programs, a private man whose public actions touch millions. His story offers a window into the tensions of modern capitalism, how infrastructure, politics, philanthropy, culture, and conflict collide when resources, scale, and power intersect. Whatever one's opinion of him, Warren's imprint on American energy and on the Dallas landscape is unmistakable. Kelcy Warren, the Texan pipeline magnate whose rise from small-town roots to the boardrooms of one of America's biggest midstream energy companies reads like a modern-day industrial epic.